once believed that justice could be found in a court of law. And in the light of day. But I was fooling myself. Darkness only responds to darkness. And the truth is, I'd rather die as the devil than live as Matt Murdock.
Oh, that's so very dark! Let's start the show! Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love, when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, but most importantly, if I was a superhero that was blind and then also very, very Catholic, I don't know that I go around shouting my name. Even if the priest were to keep that secret, somebody could overhear that. What's he doing? What's he doing?
Not on the trailer anyway. Everybody's going to watch that.
Yeah, right? I certainly wouldn't post it on the Netflix official channel trailer.
Seriously. That is a horrible way to keep a secret identity. Don't you think so? Welcome back, guest of the show, Nicole Lee.
Woo!
That's not my real name. My real name is Fair.
Fair. Yes. Fair hair.
That's actually a great secret identity because nobody can quite remember how to say it.
If you don't remember your secret identity, then nobody can ever guess. It's like a
very
pen.
secure.
That's the trick.
Of course, Nicole Lee from Engadget joins us from time to time right here on Cordkillers, and we're very happy to have you back. We've got a lot of cool things to talk about, so let's get right into the primary target. The weirdest thing about this first story for me is that I swear I went to school with someone named Christie Fleischer, but I could not find any evidence of that. Netflix has hired Christie Fleischer away from Disney to head its global consumer products team, so overseeing retail, licensing partnerships, publishing, interactive games, merchandising, even experiential events, which is like one step down from theme parks. Fleischer was previously head of merchandise for parks, experiences, and consumer products at Disney. She also worked in the merchandise management for Warnaco, American Pacific Enterprises, and the Disney Store before that. This is where we know Netflix has said they want to go, but they're stealing from the best to do it, Brian, saying not only are we going to put out merchandise around our IP, but we're going to get somebody who's very experienced at doing this at one of the companies that does it best.
So when I read your summary of this story, normally I go on and read the story so I have things to know. But in this case, like just upon reading it, I just wanted to talk out with the two of you guys what this would look like. If I'm understanding your bullet points correctly, basically, a bit of inside baseball. There's the money you make for making the content, and then there's the peripheral money. As I think of it, the bottom 90% of the iceberg, right? The merchandising,
right.
The ancillary bonus
Star Wars
stuff.
being the most famous example, right?
Exactly.
Lucas got almost nothing
Right.
from the movie, but he made tons of money off the merchandise.
Exactly. Because what you're really doing is you're figuring out an inefficient but very real way to translate general goodwill, general appreciation for a piece of art into some kind of retail commercial enterprise, right? So this is a fascinating question to me, is how much does Netflix have in its secret bottom 90%? How much goodwill would you pay to go through a Orange is the New Black haunted house? Would you buy?
Oh, you're focusing on the experiential events there. I get it. Yeah,
but all of that, like the weirder stuff you can
out
imagine.
through the gift shop where you can buy the orange shirts and
Exactly, right? Like not only the physical goods, but also the experiential stuff, also the fan conventions. That's something that we haven't seen yet. Imagine, as there's a long enough tail, imagine if they actually had an Orange is the New Black reunion convention, and it took place at Alcatraz, and it was a $500 exclusive event. Only 500 people would be allowed to go. The entire cast was there, and you guys stayed overnight in Alcatraz with the girls from Orange is the New Black. Like that's the kind of thing. That's probably not enough money. That's only $25,000.
Yeah, that probably doesn't make a lot of money.
$5,000 or whatever. I mean, my point is, I think there's incredible potential here, and I think that somebody who knows the business over at Disney would be the perfect person to figure out new ways to tell the same stories over at Netflix?
First of all, I think we have to acknowledge that she's from Disney. So that's sort of interesting because Disney's making its own streaming channel, right? So that's kind of making them more competitors than ever before, really. And the other thing is that Netflix is such a weird it's such a weird thing. I almost think of Netflix as kind of like an HBO, because HBO has a store, right? And they have interesting franchises, right? Whereas I think Netflix has more opportunity to open even more stores and more merchandising, because there are already Stranger Things dolls from Funko, and there are already like Stranger Things T-shirts from like
that was kind of their
Hot
first
Topic,
toes in the
sure.
water on this.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of merchandise already with certain franchises, right?
Yeah,
so
but also
surprise me.
Like in the HBO store, and this is unfair because I've not really explored it, but do they do anything besides slap logos on various types of merchandise? Like is there a Game of Thrones board game or something
There
more
is a
involved?
Game of Thrones board game.
There's a Game of Thrones board game.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know if that's licensed by HBO or by George R. R. Martin.
By yeah, exactly. Whether or not it's
which is another interesting thing that Netflix bought Miller World, where that won't matter. Anything they turn from a comic book into a television show and then license out material, still all in the family.
Yeah, interesting.
I think of Netflix less and less as a streaming service. I think of Netflix as a major television broadcaster right alongside Fox, CBS, ABC. And I mean that not in their broadcast senses. I mean, ABC has ABC Family and ESPN, and Fox has FX, and, CBS has Showtime. Like they all are television production houses and distributors and channel network makers. Netflix is doing all of that. The only difference is they just have the one channel that you get it through, which is the Netflix app. And so instead of saying, well, that's a Bravo show, not an NBC show, everything is Netflix, but everybody has their own tailored Netflix that's for them, rather than you having to decide, am I in the USA camp or the Bravo camp or the NBC Sports camp?
But I guess the question for me is, that sounds great, but are there ABC theme parks? Are there Fox?
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
yes-ish. You got to look to stuff like Universal properties. Like there's a Fear Factor live stage show. There's
a Simpsons Land in the NBC Universal.
True.
There's a Walking Dead attraction that just opened up. They're not all from NBC, right?
Plus also seasonal stuff. For example, Walking Dead licensed a bunch of stuff to the haunted houses at Universal's Halloween Horror Nights. Yeah. So
what I think Netflix is saying, and they've been saying this from the beginning since they started doing original content at all, is we are doing it and we own it all. And we prefer to own it from beginning to end. If we have to fudge on that to get House of Cards done, we will. But every once in a while, if we have to let Breaking or Better Call Saul be exclusive to AMC in the US, but we get it everywhere else, then we'll do it. But our goal is to own everything top to bottom. And I think that's what we're going to see with this merchandising events kind of situation.
So here's an interesting question. Are we fans of this idea in general? Is this, as a business model, a good thing or a bad thing? And keep in mind, I kind of want to recuse myself. Full disclosure.
Brian just wants an answer so he can decide what to do with his own property.
I mean, to be honest, what they have is universally beloved, top-notch AAA titles, and from that they build the pyramid downward. We've kind of done the opposite in our little 7-man operation. Is where we have scam stuff, we have the Modern Rogue and this other stuff where we try to build up from the ground up to hopefully eventually get a television show or something out of that. Are we fans of this model in general?
Nicole, what do you think? I've got an idea of what I think, but I want to hear from you first.
Thanks, Tom.
Unless you want me to go first. I'm just being nice. I'm not trying to trap you. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I have no problem with it. I mean, whether or not I'm a fan of it is besides the point, I think. Like, I don't really feel one way or the other about it, to be honest. It totally depends. I mean, there are certain franchises that lend themselves to these kinds of things than others, I think. Stranger Things, perfect. Like, that's just perfect. for this kind of promotion. I can't really think off the top of my head of anything. Like maybe Matt Groening's Disenchantment or something like that. I think that could potentially be a thing that you could do. But I just feel like there are certain properties that are better than others. But I kind of the thing is though, Tom, you know how you say that you think of them as like ABC, NBC, so on and so forth. But the thing is, like, I divorce Netflix from the thing I'm watching. Like, to me, I'm watching Stranger Things. I'm not watching Netflix's Stranger Things. I'm watching Stranger Things. So I don't even think about Netflix as like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't really think of it as, I think of it as a medium of the show I'm watching. I don't really think of it as the thing that's making the thing I'm watching.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I think that's right. And I think, that might end up becoming a problem for Netflix at some point. But I think most people, that's not an issue where they're going to forget to renew their Netflix subscription, right? So, which would be the only danger. And I think Netflix is fine with that, because I don't think they're going to be out there pushing the Netflix store or Netflix land so much as saying, here's where you get your Stranger Things cool stuff. Exactly. Here's where you have your House of Cards White House experience or whatever it is they come up with. And I think you nailed it when you said it depends on the franchise. Like, if you look at Disney, they're the masters of this, but all their successful theme park tie-ins are movies. It's Marvel, it's Star Wars, it's Pixar, it's Cars. It's all very carefully chosen. And I think that's why Netflix is smart to say, we may not have the franchises that are best for this yet. Christie Fleischer, you know what works. Come in and help us figure out what to do with what we do have, and maybe look at our slate. Maybe some things get prioritized that weren't prioritized because suddenly it's like, oh, that has a 90% iceberg of merchandise. We need to push that one forward.
And keep in mind also, there's middle of the ground opportunities. Like, for example, yes, your Disneylands have all the Disney properties. Yes, your Universals have all the Universal properties or whatever. But then the middle spot, you would have like Six Flags, where they would license stuff from Warner Brothers. And so it was vaguely Warner Brothers-esque theme park land. Whereas
I'm having a hard time thinking of a thing at Universal that's from NBC. Or Universal Pictures.
Oh, no. They definitely do.
Harry Potter is Warner.
Yeah, no.
Simpsons is Fox. Walking Dead's AMC.
Well, sure, but
I guess Waterworld was Universal, right?
Yes, but they also have, like, you go there and it's Escape to New York featuring Jimmy Fallon and I think Transformers is.
Oh, yeah. Transformers.
Yes, there's no shortage of Universal properties on Universal.
But the popular stuff that sticks out for some reason always tends to not be the Universal.
Well, yes, which only speaks larger to my point, which is you don't even have to own the space to license out the properties and make a related theme park attraction or some kind of experience for it.
And maybe that's what Christie Fleischer will do, is help Netflix tie into that and say, hey, get into the Universal theme park with a Stranger Things attraction, or get into Six Flags. So
like, you go to a Viacom, like there's Nickelodeon sponsored whatevers, so imagine you're at some theme park and there's a Nickelodeon thing, whatever, but then next to it is a Cupcake and Dino Netflix thing or whatever. Like, I could totally see that.
I can totally see a Cupcake and Dino ride too.
Oh my God, that would be great. And I wonder what song they would play during it. It's already in your head. It's too late.
I don't know. All our speculation aside, this is a very significant move by Netflix, and it'll be interesting to see what they make of it.
Yeah, man. Somebody's in the chat saying I'd stand in line for the 11 roller coaster. Of course, man. Or the terrifying experience of having the Demogorgon blast in your face and all that stuff.
Or the Ozark money laundering ride.
The money sorting game.
You get to wrap your own bills, put them in a wall. Hey, if you don't want to wrap your bills and put them in a wall, send them to us. It helps us fund the show. It's the only way we fund the show, right?
We all know that. What's the number one problem bugging all of you guys? It's the end of the month. What's that? Oh, great. It happened again. There's money still left in the bank account. Well, guess what? We're here to help. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers so you can support our show. You could be our boss. You can tell us what to do and we'll have to do it. That's what it means to be a boss.
Yeah. So boss us around with your dollars from one to no end. You can give us as much as you want at patreon.com.
You know what, Tom, we haven't discussed this, but I'm declaring a hard upper limit of $700,000 million.
$700,000 million is the most we'll take, folks.
That is the most per month we can per show that we can possibly
get right
take.
up to it. $699,000 million.
I mean, they were cool, but you cross that line. No, sir.
Don't cross us. So show us exactly how close to that line you can get at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
We're playing Patreon chicken. That's what's going on.
Let's talk about how to watch. We got some Europe stuff today. The European Union has reached a preliminary agreement on rules to require streaming services to carry at least 30% European-made content in their libraries. It is expected to pass through its vote very quickly. Individual countries would be allowed to mandate above 30 if they wanted to, so up to 40%, and require a minimum of that amount be made in their specific country. So, for instance, the Netherlands could say, well, we want 40% European made, and half of it has to be made in the Netherlands. Surcharges on subscription fees can also be levied to pay into national film funds to encourage locally made films. Netflix already does this in Germany. Vote is expected to pass, and the rules become law in December. And then once it does become law, companies would have 20 months from there to apply. The interesting things to note, Brian, is Netflix is almost right there at 30% already.
Man, this is a tough one for me, Tom.
You hate numbers.
I hate tribalism is what I hate. I don't think the world is made better when you train people from birth to think of us and them. And I understand. So there's on the spectrum, you have on the one side where it's like what we want is to preserve our local heritage. And the way to do that is to incentivize local creators to tell our story, to remind our people in our place that we are us. And I understand that. However, on the flip side, a perverse consequence of that is that what you are doing is essentially nationalism, which is what leads to us and them, and deciding that them need to be exterminated so that us can survive. I don't like it in real war.
What if that's not the only reason? What if the other side is not, we need to preserve our culture, but we need to let everyone else in the world know who we are to actually fight against their nationalism, but we're being crushed unless we give our local folks a little leg up because they can't get to Hollywood.
I mean, you could label it any way you want, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's you're taking away choice and you're forcing.
Well, sure, but I guess what I'm saying is there's an argument to be made that if you don't do something to help your local industry get a leg up, suddenly everything is from Los Angeles, not even elsewhere in the U.S. It's just all from Los Angeles, and it's all L.A.-centric, and that's not good either.
Correct, and that's a really good point, and it makes me think of, part of the reason that the human species has done so well is because we are so heterogeneous, that we have so many, the fact that we sexually reproduce, we get these weird mashups of genes all over the place, makes us a really...
with Denisovans and Neanderthals. And
you're right. We collapsed into only sapiens, and this is a whole nother podcast that we could go
now
into.
Suddenly we're doing weird things. We gotta pull back.
But I think we're on the same page where it's like I understand the benefit to it, but I am fearful of the down the road consequences. Nicole, where do you weigh in on this?
I have a specific opinion, but I'm not sure if it applies to the news at hand. But my opinion is that I am sick and tired of the regionalization of content, in the sense that I can only watch certain shows if I live in a certain place. Like if I live in somewhere else, I can watch a certain thing. So my perspective on this is that yes, every country should have a certain percentage of that region, like have that 20% German content, have that 20% British content. But I, as a citizen of the United States, I want to see it too. Because I want to see every country's content. I want to be able to see all of it, right? And I'm not sure if this provides for that. Maybe it does. I mean, I don't know. If it does, then great. And I think the reason why I'm kind of okay with this is because if forcing this quote unquote minimum quota or whatever encourages more content to be on streaming services on Netflix, let's say, to be available worldwide, I say, hell yeah.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because I think it's saying the exact opposite. Because, for example, let's say as I read this, it's saying, hey, Netflix, if you're going to be in Europe, 30% of the content has to be European made. What's interesting is, why not? I'm with you, Nicole. Say the reverse. Say, hey, Netflix, if you want to be in Europe, 30% of your out of Europe content has to be European. And if it's not, well, then guess what? You don't get to come to Europe. So it's like if the goal is to export your culture, then it seems like the last thing you would want to do is to make sure that the people who are already European are watching European stuff.
That's an interesting way to do it. I love that idea of saying, you know how we're going to encourage local content, make other people outside of the country watch it. I get the feeling that we're talking about cable card requirements here. In the lifetime of this show, we have done stories about the fight over whether cable card should be forced to be allowed and opened. And Brian particularly and myself have been saying, who cares? Nobody's going to be using cable card. And guess what? Today, nobody's using cable card. What's happening is companies like Comcast and Charter and the cable companies are starting to put apps on streaming boxes. And it's, we're not 100% there yet, but this feels the same thing where Netflix is like, sure, no, that's fine. We already have 30%. We want to anyway. It's a good idea. And we're going to do exactly what you said too, Brian, and make all of that available as widely as possible outside. So if you need to pass a rule to make yourself feel better, we don't really care. We're already doing it.
Yeah, that's the bummer part, is like at the end of the day, in general, legislative bodies only legislate what already is happening that is safe for them to do. So in this case, they already have 30% of the market. Hey man, let's say we pass a law and make it official. Hey, we did the thing. We secured our base or whatever that means. I don't know.
Well, and it does make sure other startups, are more likely to follow in Netflix's footsteps, I suppose. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention also from Europe, Switzerland's public broadcaster will stop over-the-air TV broadcast by the end of 2019. Now, this is sometimes the headlines will be misleading and make you think Switzerland's stopping all over-the-air broadcast. It's just the Switzerland public broadcaster. And only 1.9% of the population, about 64,000 people, take advantage of watching the public broadcaster over the air. And lots of people watch it on cable or online, but almost nobody watches it over the air. Now, this might not fly in the U.S., where 17% of homes rely on broadcast only, and that's rising. It was only 15% a couple of years ago in 2015.
This is a weird echo of the thing we just talked about, because when it comes to the informational health of any particular society, I want as many redundant ways to get messages out as possible, and shutting down even a very unpopular one. And granted, we're Cordkillers here. You would think that it's like, yes, let's get rid of old, outmoded stuff, make everything IP based would be a good thing. But it makes me fearful, because it makes me feel like we have a weak defense mechanism against outside bugs. Like that's the reason that sexually reproducing species, to bring it back again, do better than asexual, because asexuals, they all have the exact same genetic code. And then when something wipes out one, it wipes out all of them. Whereas I like the idea of us having a robust redundancy.
Yeah, there are people that are of two minds about the UK's the thing there's a TV licensing fee, right? And there are some conflicting opinions about that. But I think it's a good idea. It supports the BBC, and the BBC is, I guess, maybe the same kind of quote unquote public broadcast, not exactly the same scale. I understand that, but I do think the very thing that makes them deserving of over-the-air broadcast is the fact that they're a public broadcaster. Like, if they were any other channel, maybe not, but the fact that they are a PBS equivalent, I'm guessing, like that kind of thing, is even more reason to have a antenna option.
Yeah, I look at this and I think, keep in mind what's happening here is Switzerland's public broadcaster is saying to the government, right, can we not be required to do this anymore? You have a requirement that we do this. We only have 64,000 people watching it. We bet if we turn it off, most of them will still watch us in another way. And it's costly to maintain this. Do we need to keep doing it? It's like it would be like somebody who manufactured VHS tapes and DVDs going to the government because they were required to keep making VHS, and they're like, we can make DVDs and Blu-rays. Do we still have to do VHS? So they're saying, look, we have lots of ways to get us over the internet and in mobile, and cable still carries us. Do we really need to be super serving this declining percentage?
Tom, you know how to speak my language. You just rephrased the question, and suddenly I'm like, wait, so somebody's asking for more freedom instead of less? Well, guess what I'm in favor of?
Yeah, no, it's interesting though, I really think it's interesting in comparison to the United States, and I'm glad you brought up the BBC as well, where there's a lot of controversy. Switzerland's public broadcaster, also funded by the government, but the BBC has this very unique way of saying, no, this money is only meant for the BBC, and you don't have to pay it if you don't watch television. And how do you prove that, and all of that? So we have all of these different old models, and we haven't quite figured out what the fate of all of them is going to be. All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under surveillance.
Now we got a packed section today, so we'll move through it fairly quickly because we have 2 weeks worth of announcements to cover. But the first human mission to Mars arrives on Hulu September 14th, starring Sean Penn as a grounded astronaut and created by House of Cards creator Beau Willimon.
Man, I wonder if that's part of how they make it. The headline says it feels pretty real. I wonder if that's a big part of it, is because in real life, our experience when this does happen will be we're all grounded astronauts just getting reports, from the outside world.
Doctor Who will premiere October 7th for both UK and US viewers. BBC America is even going to air the premiere twice, once in the afternoon simulcast with the UK and an airing at the normal primetime hour.
Is there any vestiges? Is anyone still butthurt about it being a female doctor? Are we past that officially?
Was anyone that really, was anyone really that upset?
Probably some.
I know there were a few very loud people, but I don't think the majority of people were that upset.
Yeah, I guess that's my point. Is like, even as the first bluster happened,
I forgot
fake.
that was even a thing until you brought it up.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
No, but I love that we're actually getting a simulcast, because I've been tempted to visit London in the afternoon to make sure I don't get spoiled on Twitter, and then, of course, fly quickly back to the United States to watch it prime time before.
My goodness, you get around, don't you?
It's hard on a body to travel like that. Orson Welles' last film, The Other Side of the Wind, began shooting in 1970, starring John Huston, Peter Bogdanovich, Susan Strasberg, and Oja Kadar. In March 2017, Welles' production manager Frank Marshall and Philip Jan Remsha got the film completed. It features Oscar-winning editor Bob Murawski and a new score by Oscar-winning composer Michael Legrand, and tells the story of a self-exiled producer who returns to L.A. to make a comeback movie, and will arrive in select theaters and on Netflix November 2nd.
Man, this is tough because I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess it's not tough. I'll just watch it and it'll either be good or not. But this part of the story is tough because I have these warring factions that say, man, this is going to look like Forrest Gump, just trying to wedge square pegs into round holes for sake of storytelling, because you don't have the original, you don't have access to the actors, you don't have anything but the found footage to work with. But on the other part of me says, like, if it's good, man, would that be... That's like a perfect triple Lindy, like difficulty multiplier times 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever? How many times have we talked about watching a movie and saying, "Oh, but if they had edited it different, I bet it would have been better." And so this one has had, decades to percolate, and you bring in an Oscar-winning editor to say, well, "Take a look at what they did, and let's see what we can do to improve on it." Netflix released a teaser for House of Cards, returning November 2nd, showing Claire at Frank's grave.
Okay.
So There you go.
Man, what a weird, I can't even imagine what it's like to make that show. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Netflix released a teaser for Shira and the Princesses of Power. The show arrives November 16th. Looks kind of Sailor Moonish, a lot of people are saying.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the original creators of Shira chimed in at some people saying like, oh, they changed her body and made her less like a sexy Barbie doll. And I don't like, whatever. And he chimed in. He said, look, Shira is an archetype, and archetypes reflect, they're always viewed through the lenses of their time, basically. And we live in a different time. And I think it's wonderful that they're doing the way they are.
Also like that it's princesses of power, implying we're going to have a whole cast here, not just one Shira running around.
Yeah, I agree.
Ellen DeGeneres returns to stand-up on December 18th on Netflix.
Man, oh man, are stand-up specials cheap to produce? That's all I have to say.
And the only cost is the contract with the performer, and Netflix apparently has enough money to get over that hurdle. So
exactly.
CBS will stream the Super Bowl on Sunday, February 3rd on its mobile website and apps without requiring sign-in. They've been doing this on the web because different networks get it every year for a few years now. And of course, if you're an authenticated viewer through cable or a subscriber to CBS All Access, you'll also be able to watch it on mobile. And it will also stream on the NFL's website and app, on Verizon's AOL, Complex, Tumblr, and Yahoo.
But Tom...
I love this. It shows like the only reason they try to restrict viewing is when they're not sure that the advertisers will be satisfied unless they make people watch the ads.
Speaking of which,
when the advertisers are spending as much money as they do in the Super Bowl, it's like, oh, we need as many eyeballs as possible because we're going to rake this money in.
Which leads to my question, which is we're talking about the Super Bowl content, but are we talking about the ads? Are all of these guaranteed to have the same ads?
No, and I usually they do show different ads in these streams, but not always. Like some streams will actually have the real ads from the network broadcast, some won't. So it'll be interesting how they handle that. That is the next question, exactly. On to some development news. Netflix cast Henry Cavill as Geralt in the Witcher series. Production is supposed to start October 18th, and it looks like the show might premiere late 2019. It was originally scheduled to premiere in 2020.
Dude, very exciting. We've talked about it before, where this is an independent production of the same source material as the Witcher video game series. It'll be interesting to see what's different.
Apple has bought rights to both the nature documentary The Elephant Queen, as well as the animated movie Wolfwalkers from Oscar nominee Tom Moore, about a young hunter who learns to appreciate wolves. Also the documentary The Elephant Queen from an Oscar-winning documentarian. So, Brian, what is your one-word recent status on Apple television?
Oh, what's that, Tom? You're saying just around the corner is amazing Apple TV content? Well, I can't wait.
I love the what the rock is cooking motion you just made. That was amazing. Netflix has picked up canceled ABC show Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland for a third season. 10 episodes will begin production this year and arrive in 2019.
Man, is this worth diving into? Have either of you guys watched this?
I haven't. No.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of season 1. It's weird. I don't know. It wasn't for me.
Yeah, the idea is like all the normal people who are supposed to succeed to the presidency are killed, and
like
the one person, the designated survivor that was protected, is like what, the Secretary of Commerce or something?
Yeah, something like that. And it's weird to see like Jack Bauer having to be Jack Bauer, but being like a very modest guy or modest politician. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jack Bauer aged into John McCain territory, or
it's
not quite there.
Yeah. I don't know. And then I heard season 2 was not even as good. So this is a surprise to see Netflix pick this up. So
the Coen Brothers Netflix movie, former television series, now a movie, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, showed at the Venice Film Festival and will also receive a theatrical release in the U.S. to qualify for awards.
Right on. Is that universally considered a good sign when something is supposed to be a TV show, but then whoops, it's a movie?
I don't know about that. That doesn't happen a lot. I don't know we have much precedent for that. Yeah. Huh. But it did well at the film festival. So finally, The Hollywood Reporter says Mr. Robot's 4th season will be its last. It will run 12 episodes, which is a little longer than the other seasons, and air next year. Sam Esmail said, "Since day one, I've been building toward one conclusion, and in breaking the next season of Mr. Robot, I've decided that conclusion is finally here. Everyone on the creative team, including the amazing people at USA and UCP, didn't want to say goodbye, but we ultimately have too much respect for Elliot's journey to extend it past its inevitable ending."
Yes. Good for you on the storytelling side of things. I'm going to trust you, Sam Esmail. I certainly trust you because you said, guess what? USA would really prefer this just go on forever, but we're not going to do that. The last season felt awfully pokey to me, and so I'm kind of glad it's like I would rather see them just wrap it on up than try to stretch it out too far.
Nicole, you have any other thoughts on that?
Nope. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right. Good. I think we're all in agreement on that. Let's talk about what we've had our eyes on then. Nicole, what have you been watching?
A lot since we last chatted. I watched Crazy Rich Asians a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys talked about it, but I loved it. It's great. Especially as not only an Asian American, but someone who was born in Asia.
And somebody who's crazy rich.
just the crazy part.
Okay, got it. 2 out of 3 is not bad.
That's right. Yeah, and it was. I found it a really interesting movie because it reflected the Asian perspective, like if you're born and raised in Asia, that perspective, and the Asian American perspective, both perspectives of which I have because I am from Asia and I'm also an Asian American. So it was really interesting to see from that point of view, and it's just beautiful in general. Like the colors were very rich, and there was just like the costumes were amazing, and just in general a wonderful story, a wonderful romantic comedy that also had some really interesting and strong cultural perspectives built in.
That's what I've heard.
That's why it's succeeding so well. It's blowing away the box office expectations because it's a great movie, not even just a good movie, but a great movie that is also groundbreaking at the same time.
Exactly. So it sort of melds both worlds in that sense. The other thing I've been doing is that I think last time I talked to you guys, I was still like catching up on my Marvel movies.
Oh yeah, right.
And as of basically last week, I've watched every single one, with the exception of the most recent, the Wasp one. That's the only one that I haven't watched.
This
one's not available for rent yet, is it?
Yeah, it's not available yet, so I have to wait.
Okay. This is in how long of a time period that you consume the entire MCU?
I watched I took a break. Like I watched I watched all the way until I think Iron Man 3, and then I took a long break. And then from then until the most recent one, I just consumed it all in maybe 2 months, basically.
Wow. Did you rewatch the ones you had seen?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that? Yeah, and it was I really liked watching them that way because I feel like everything runs together. You can remember, who was that guy in that shot? I know who that guy is now because I just saw him in 2 movies ago.
Yep.
So you remember who everybody is. You remember who the characters are. You're like, oh, okay, I now understand why he emerged out of that. Oh yeah, I get who he is now. And all of a sudden, it totally makes sense. The Black Panther makes sense with the fact that he came. The Civil War thing came. It all makes sense. And I feel like if I watched it 2 years ago, I don't think I would have remembered it.
Yep. Nope.
I don't think I would have remembered it.
I will validate your claim that watching them separated makes it really hard to be like, is that a guy? They're talking like that's a thing. And then days later, you're like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I guess that was a thing.
Yeah, watching them back to back was like, okay, I understand who they are. I understand the relationship to each other. Which I guess I have to listen back to your spoilering time episodes when you guys talked about Infinity War because I'm really fascinated by the ending and I'm like, what? So it'll be interesting to see what happens from that.
I also noticed you noted here that you've been watching Pluto TV too. Yeah.
So Pluto TV, free TV service. I'm sure you guys have talked about it. Mm-hmm. Basically a free TV alternative, which is so. I was talking to a friend about it, and she was like, "So wait, we went from free TV to cable TV to streaming TV, and then back to free TV? How did that happen?" Yeah. And that's basically it. There's no DVR, there's no recording, there's no fast forwarding. There's just what you see is what you get.
For people who miss channel surfing.
Yeah, for people who miss. For me, it's for people who miss background TV.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. If you miss just having something on in the background, either you're in a party setting or you're just chilling out in the kitchen or whatever. Just having something on that's what it's really good for. Like watching riff tracks all day long, or watching MST3K all day long, or just watching Cats all day long.
It's nice to have TV that is 100% free of obligations or stakes, because every time I decide, this is part of the reason that I gravitate towards television binging sessions rather than movies, is because if I watch a movie, I'm like, ooh, do I feel like committing 2 hours to Kong Skull Island? I don't know. It seems like a dicey bet, and then I don't do it. Whereas, like, do I feel like committing 20 minutes to The Good Place? Yes, I do. Click, and then this is even lower stakes, where it's like I could just walk away and come back and halfway through another show, and it doesn't even matter.
Riff tracks is great. Literally, you just pop in, watch like maybe 10 minutes, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect like snackable TV. It's I don't know. I really like it. I really dig it.
Brian, what about you? What's something you've been watching recently that you liked?
That was a real example, Tom. I'm watching The Good Place. I'm finally watching The Good Place, and guess what? It's great. I'm halfway through the second season. They're available seasons 1 and 2 on Netflix, and it's the longer you watch, the faster you realize it's a very, very smart show and really, really funny and clever. And Ted Danson is a national treasure, and he's great. Also, I started watching Ozark season 2, which I expected to just suck me right in, but maybe I just was looking for lighter fare because I only watched the first couple of episodes. I did get caught up on Better Call Saul, and of course, watched Deadwood, and I think I watched something else, but I'm sure I'll bark out later on in the episode.
The two things I want to talk about this week were things I watched on the plane. One, they're both documentaries actually. Being George Clooney is a really short. If you're on like an hour flight, hour and 15 flight, perfect documentary for you. Being George Clooney is about the actors around the world who voice George Clooney in movies, and how they generally will be chosen over and over again because the people in that country or who listen to that language start to identify that person's voice as George Clooney's voice.
Oh,
and
that's
in fact,
amazing.
They tell the story about how when Robert De Niro insisted on speaking Italian in The Godfather 2, it went over horribly in Italy because that wasn't what Robert De Niro sounded like to them, because all his other movies up until that point had been dubbed by this other guy.
That's amazing. I've been told that in the Latin American version of Hacking the System, I have a very manly, robust, saucy voice.
And it's really fun to see the people behind this and talk to them about it. But the one I really loved was called Ramen Heads, which is about the ramen king of Japan, Osamu Tomita, who has won best ramen in Japan 4 years straight. And it goes into all of the ways that he prepares his ramen and runs his restaurant. And there's this great sequence where he gets together with two of the other big ramen chefs in Japan, and they team up to create a special recipe for his 10-year anniversary of opening his shop. But it'll make you hungry, especially for ramen. But it's amazing. It's, if you've ever seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi, this is that for ramen.
Right on.
All right, what do we be on the lookout for, Bryce?
Hey, listener Blair sent in a pic that this really surprised me. So she recommended a show called Chef and My Fridge. Do you guys, anybody here heard of Chef and My Fridge?
Wait,
I haven't.
Is this where like a chef has to take just random stuff from your fridge? Is that a thing, or did I dream that?
Basically,
Okay.
that's basically it.
That was a public access show in San Francisco in like 1999.
Well, now it's a Korean variety panel show. So the premise is a bunch of professional chefs sit around and they do these 15-minute cooking challenges using only the ingredients that they find in celebrity guests' personal fridges. So they always make a big deal out of the opening shot of, like, you see them carting out the fridge and putting it on a truck, and it's like on a GoPro, so you're following it all the way through. And it becomes this very like pokey, proddy thing of like, oh, what does the singer have in her fridge? Oh, look at this. This is expired. Ooh. And so it's a very like social energy. It really feels like a panel show, it is a panel show. The first half of the episode that I watched today for this was no cooking at all. Like, it was the panel talking and then talking with the celebrities a little bit, and then they started looking into the fridges, but it wasn't until like 30 minutes in where they actually started cooking anything. So it's a different energy, but it's very personal in the way that a lot of Korean TV is. You know, a lot of those personalities are referencing, oh, you were on this other show yesterday, whatever. And so it actually feels a lot like Nailed It. We talked about Nailed It on Cordkillers a few months ago when it premiered, and it's the same thing where it's like for fun, right? They're professional chefs, so the stakes are a little bit higher, but they're poking fun at each other, they're insulting each other. Oh, you dropped that. Oh, you're overcooking this, whatever. I mean, even the studio is really small, right? Like, there's a table where all the panelists are sitting at, and then the cooking station is immediately next to it. So there's no like separation of distance. Like, it's immediate. So everyone is narrating and commenting kind of at the same time. And it makes it really, really high energy. Anything else here? Yeah, it's really cool. I think a lot of the English speaking audience maybe doesn't have experience watching a show like this, which is very frantic, a lot of effects, a lot of sound effects and visual effects and stuff. But I think it's worth a try. They have 46 episodes of Chef and My Fridge on Netflix now in a lot of countries. Thank you, Blair, for sending this in.
Hey, if you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. And then do what Brian's about to tell you to do.
Yeah, man, do us a favor. Look, man, the Modern Rogue daily articles over at themodernrogue.com. They just keep getting better and better and better. Tom, how many times did we get you in the last couple of weeks?
At least, a little less feed reading with my travel, but still at least 3 in the last week.
That's our favorite new game is Tom not knowing that he's clicking on an article from themodernrogue.com.
Well, because y'all stopped. I started to catch on when it was like 5 blah 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 blah, but you stopped doing that now, and so I'm getting got more.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what, man. It's a total blast. The articles are really, really good, and it's so much fun to realize that we are now 10 months into this journey, and already, the numbers are doing better and better and better. We still haven't monetized a damn thing. Everything you're seeing on there is completely a labor of love, complete speculation that we can recreate some of the magic that people felt in the early days of crack.com, along with John Cheese, our editor-in-chief. I'm really, really proud of it. Just enjoy it. So in other words, the thing I'm trying to sell you is literally nothing except for enjoy all of these articles.
What's the URL
if you want
again?
Surprising unintended ways people use common technology, you're going to be sucked into the Modern Rogue.
That's right. themodernrogue.com.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines!
The Emmy Awards happen in 3 waves now. The first wave of creative arts were awarded this past Sunday. There will be another wave of creative arts coming September 9th. And then you get the Primetime Emmys, which is televised. And that's all the big, best drama, et cetera. That comes on September 17th. So in this first round, and we'll be revisiting this later, I'm sure, HBO took home the most trophies at 13, mostly for Game of Thrones stuff. Netflix took 3 awards for Black Mirror, 3 for The Crown, and 2 for Glow. Hulu's Handmaid's Tale got 3. Amazon's Marvelous Mrs. Maisel got 3 as well. And Brian, even Apple took home Outstanding Short-Form Variety Series for Carpool Karaoke.
I'll believe it when I see it, and I still haven't seen it, even though you just told me about it. However, meanwhile, sources tell the information that Amazon plans to launch an ad-supported streaming service for its Fire TV devices. Its working title is Free Dive. Good idea or bad idea, Nicole?
Because, it's what Roku's doing, right, Nicole?
Yeah, but also, like, you buy a Roku with the expectation that you'll be able to use it for some kind of free service or also premium stuff. But an Amazon device, I would think you would buy just with the expectation of using for Amazon stuff.
Couple of things that came up to my mind. First is Amazon must be really wanting for customers if they're doing ad-supported stuff, right? Because that seems like something you would, if you give something away for free and then you're supporting with ads, that sounds like you may have problems getting people wanting your service. Now that's the first reaction. Second reaction, I mean, I guess it's something to do. I just don't see a market for it.
Wait,
I guess.
I'm trying to imagine who's the person that buys a Fire TV stick saying, I have $99 to buy for this stick, but I'll be damned if I'll spend $80 on a subscription to a year's worth of Prime.
But remember, they offered Kindles with ad support. And
I mean,
it was
yeah.
marginally cheaper, and people went with that because
the question isn't will people buy this and not use Amazon Prime? The question is, will people use this channel at all? Like you mentioned, some people pay for Netflix and still watch the Roku free channel. Some people even buy movies on Vudu and still watch Vudu's free streaming with ads. What Amazon is banking on is this will be very low, marginally expensive because they already have infrastructure for Prime Video to put in place, and they are catching up to Facebook and Google in selling ads, so they need more places to put those ads.
That's actually a really good way to reframe it, because what my guess is that Amazon does not care if anybody uses this service at all. What they care about is being able to tell everyone, and you can watch stuff for free.
Yeah.
That's it.
Whether or not anybody ever does it or not. Yep.
Bingo.
That's the value add. Yeah. Plus, like, I think a lot of people do buy Fire devices like for like an extra. It's like an extra device, like an extra room thing.
Right.
So in that case, it's just it's just added bonus content.
Yeah.
So.
DC streaming service will launch September 15th. They had a big announcement with Kevin Smith. The first original show, Titans, will arrive October 12th, premiering at New York Comic-Con. It'll get a sneak peek October 3rd at Comic-Con and then be on the streaming service October 12th.
Good deal. Meanwhile, Sony PlayStation Vue lost access to a bunch of local stations when Sinclair pulled their channels in May, but Sony has added 200 other local broadcast stations from other owners, bringing the total of local stations offered in the U.S. to 450. Man, I got it. Tom, this is a bias. Nicole, this is a bias on my part. I just have a hard time picturing somebody getting PlayStation Vue and being obsessed with local television. Those two.
Well, don't forget about local. I think you get hung up on like local news and stuff. It's about the primetime shows from those networks.
Got it. Okay.
Because if you don't have your local CBS station, you can't watch anything from CBS on
right.
PlayStation.
So you're okay. All right, that makes sense. Then you're like, oh no, I want to watch The Good Place, and I'm missing season 3 right now. Yeah. Okay.
Finally, YouTube TV users can pause their subscription up to 6 months now without losing any of their DV recordings or favorites. Now, keep in mind, your recordings still expire 9 months after you recorded them, and the date that you resume your membership becomes your new billing date.
6 months is a curious thing because it's longer than immediately, and it's much shorter than forever. And
It sure is.
If you told me you kept it for a year, it would be forever in my mind. If you told me you kept it for 1 month, I'd be like, okay, so I pretty much lose it immediately. But 6 months is the worst mushy middle because I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how that would affect my behavior one way or the other.
Yeah, I wonder what their calculus was in picking that 6 months. I'm sure they had a reason. I'm sure they're Google, right? They calculate everything.
I seem to think it's fine because to me it sounds more like you're going on vacation or you're going on a trip that could be a month or two, or maybe you're going off to, I don't know, visit relatives. I mean, it just seems like one of those things you just stop for a couple of months. 6 months is just enough leeway to, like, if you want to do more, you can.
If you disable your service for a slow period, if you don't like the new slate of shows this season and you want to come back in the fall, maybe that's what this is, you know.
Oh, you know what? That would make sense.
And then you get to keep all your settings and stuff.
So basically, stick with us for half the year, and then and this is Hulu season, and then the other half of the year is YouTube season.
And then
I can kind of see it for sports too.
Yeah, sure, sports.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When your sport gets into gear, you'll watch it until it's off. And then usually the breaks between seasons are less than 6 months.
Yeah, so I could see that. That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the dispatches from the front. Ian wrote in, hey, cord killing gurus, wanted to follow up joining Netflix via iOS instead of direct through the Netflix website. I'm sure I'm a very small minority, but I actually canceled my membership just to be able to sign up again through my Apple TV. When you sign up through Apple, you can use your iTunes balance to pay for the service. iTunes cards are pretty easy to find for a 10 to 15% discount, so it saves me about $2 a month off Netflix. Derek from Naperville had a pretty similar email, said, I've been a Netflix customer since the early days, but switched my billing once they offered through apps on Apple because of iTunes gift cards consistently going on sale for 10 to 20%, and that money can then be applied to my subscriptions.
Also, Troy writes us saying, Disney Blu-rays pattern has not changed. They continue to pull the major family movies into the vault and reintroduce them every 10 years. This strategy works because there's a new generation ready for the new content, and the urgency of the limited release ensures that movies will get bought rather than allowing parents to put them in the we'll get around to it list. The question now is, does this go away with the Disney streaming service? Will parents keep the Disney Channel month after everything is available all the time, or will the service continue to release movies in 10-year windows twice a year so premieres line up with their Christmas and Easter disc release, perhaps? He says also that he subscribed to CBS All Access when Star Trek started. He went ahead and watched week after week instead of waiting until the season was over and binging, but he still intends to drop the service between Star Trek seasons, which I guess goes back to the whole 6 months cancellation policy.
Yeah. And then Tucker wrote in because we talked about how much difficulty people have had getting a Foundation TV series made. And Tucker's like, well, the BBC did an excellent radio series of the novels a few years back. Surely if someone can do a radio adaptation of the works, then a TV version isn't impossible either. He also said that the idea that he got from the radio adaptation, which hadn't hit him as much when he read the book, of living under an emperor bugged him as well. But I think that's just a great point of how a good radio adaptation or a good television adaptation will bring parts of the story out that maybe didn't hit you as much when you read it, because it's a different way of telling the story.
Yeah, agreed. Jeff Peterson writes in saying, as one of the Veronica Mars movie backers, I was thrilled to hear the news that the show was coming back. I was less thrilled to hear that Hulu was going to be the home of it, as that is his least favorite platform. But he will be paying to watch the show and then not paying anymore. So this is a dedicated fan who swoops in, sees the thing, GTFOs.
Yeah. And then, what, Nicole, do you have something on that?
No, I just thought that was funny.
He's like, I hate Hulu. Everything about Hulu, except for that one show. Amr wrote in and said, Spotify recently updated their Spotify Premium for Students program to include Showtime. The Students program is only $5 a month. So for $5 now, you get Spotify Premium, Hulu with ads, and Showtime. Of course, you have to prove you're a student. It's a crazy deal. Check it out. 2 things. He says, if you're having trouble signing up, even if your college is on the list, manually verify that you're a student and use a PDF of your class schedule. And 2, if you have the discount already, you won't get Showtime until your next billing cycle.
Good deal.
So there you go. Very cool. And interesting to watch these bundles start to experiment and take shape. As people complain about having to pay for too many different services at once. I think it's really interesting to see Spotify collecting them. They say they will add Showtime to their other. They have a bundle for non-students for Hulu, which is like, I don't know, $12 or $13 a month. So and they say they want to add Showtime to that too.
It seems to me that basically you identify a few services that in general people know they're never going to give up, and you use those as anchor points. These lampposts that you hang all of these other services on, like Amazon. I'm never going to give up my Amazon Prime anything. I'm never going to get out of the Amazon ecosystem. So yes, that's where I want to buy Stars and Epics and all that stuff. Spotify is another one that I'll never give up. And so sure, you're going to add on Showtime, let's go for that. And so weirdly, we talked about the fig leaf cable system as a way to authenticate your way into a bunch of other ecosystems. I didn't expect that the fig leaves would be Amazon and Spotify and these major, Apple other services.
Well, and especially for students who are like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'm paying for Spotify. Yeah. I'm not paying for cable. And it's like, great, we'll get in on the Spotify action then. So
smart move.
Makes perfect sense. Nicole Lee, a smart move is having you on the show too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
If folks want to find out what you've got going on, where should they go to find out more?
You can go to twitter.com/Nicole or engadget.com.
Excellent. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, also carried on diamondclub.tv, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will hug you with cord killing again next week.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a
you
name.
just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. Well, I'm gonna make you famous, kid. Put your
There's
name in
some
pixels on
classic
the internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.